What's up, everybody? It is late, I am tired, and my wife has just announced that she needs a bookshelf for her classroom tomorrow. So, we're building a quick bookshelf tonight with easy tools, and I'm going to show you how. Basic dimensions 34 wide, 34 tall, 14 inches deep, and I'm just going to use a couple of basic lap joints, and I'm going to use a dado stack. Believe it or not all woodworkers on YouTube are sponsored by Festool. So I have a secondhand table saw. My dado stack is from Harbor Freight, so you can do this pretty easily with basic tools. Let's get started. I don't really have a whole lot of tips on breaking down big sheets of plywood. Most people lay them on the ground over a sheet of foam and cut it. I'm not going to mess with that. So what I'm doing here is I'm over measuring two strips wide, 14 and 14, and just kind of roughing it out with my skill saw. And then I'm going to come back on my table saw and final cut everything. All right, so I've got my two pieces. Now I'm laying the factory edge against the fence and ripping them down into 14-inch strips. Now that that's done, we are swapping on our dado stack, and we want it to be 3/8, which is half of 3/4, and that's going to make our rabbet on the plywood. All right, so I've got my dado stack here installed. Another point to make there is anytime you're messing with blades on anything, I'm sure this goes without saying, but unplug the power. I can't tell you how many times I've injured myself before I finally learned to unplug it before you drill or saw or whatever your skin off. So now that point's made, we are going to take our, hold that thought. All right, so we're gonna make a notch in the end of our plywood here that is exactly half of our plywood thickness. So this is 3/4 inch plywood, as decimal form is 0.75, half of that is 0.375. So my dado stack is 0.375 wide as per my diagram that I showed you in the dado stack box. And so we have our width accounted for. Now we need to make our depth account 3/8. So what I'm gonna do is tape my little plastic dial calipers here. You can use a tape measure just the same. Measure 0.375, or you can just read it in here like a smart person. And then you're gonna raise your saw up to where it just touches the bottom. So now your cut width and your cut depth are gonna be square. So the next problem is, how do I make the cut? Because typically you're gonna use your saw fence here to set your cut width. But if I do that, then my blade is gonna hit the fence. We don't want that. So I think what I'm gonna do, be a little bit sloppy and just sneak my fence over just wide enough so where it doesn't, see it's hitting there, it's not hitting there. Don't tell my wife, but that's how we're gonna do it. All right, so now it's just a matter of running each strip of plywood over the dado stack and cutting out the recess so that they'll fit together. All right, so now I've got these nice, neat little ledges. For my the two sides, I'm gonna make one more rabbet for my shelf to sit in. So we're 34 inches long. The fence here is gonna be set to, I'm just gonna set it to 17 1/8 because again, I'm tired and lazy tonight, and that's as good as it's gonna get. You should probably do better. Well, I thought better of it. I have standards to uphold somewhere, so I went ahead and measured it correctly. So it's time to fit everything together. Of course, it doesn't fit. Why would it fit the first time? Haha. So back to the table saw to deepen the cut a little bit and then make everything fit together. So here's that process, and we glue it and we clamp it and then we forget about it. And about this point, I gave up for the night. I was tired and I was making mistakes, and I just decided it was better to come back again and just deal with my wife being late. All right, so I've got it all put together now, and it needs a back. So luckily, I had this scrap piece of 1/8 inch plywood that is larger than what I need. So I'm gonna trim this down to the exact dimensions, and we're gonna tack it on. All right, not a whole lot to talk about here, just trimming the skin down to size
And I put a reference mark here so you know where the shelf runs. You can draw a line across and run your tacks in, and then put your skin on. Put the backing on. Putting the skin on sounds really creepy. Don't do that. I'm sorry. Skins is a cabinet term. I promise I do not have a pit in my living room, and I will not send the basket down to you. As you can tell, I have changed shirts 3 times, which means it is now day 3 of this 3-hour build. So it's basically done. I could leave well enough alone and send it on its way, but there's parts here that I'm just not quite happy with. So I don't really like exposed edge plywood, nor do I like that my joints aren't really as neat as they could be. So if you're in a bind and you just need something, you can leave it alone. I can't leave it alone. I'm going to make a quick edge banding out of maple. Here we go. The keen observer will notice that I do not have any shoes on, and I don't have a good excuse for this other than it's Sunday morning. I'm tired, and my ability to care was just pretty close to zero. So we're just ripping some maple down into 1-inch strips here, nothing spectacular, and cutting them to length on our miter saw. And then we're going to tack those puppies on after we put a little bit of glue down. Okay, last little detail. This is a Harbor Freight palm router with a Harbor Freight chamfer bit. I'm just gonna go around all the edges down there and ease them a little bit. This is going in classroom. We don't want sharp edges and splinters to cut your little ankle biters. So here we go. All right, so there we go. That took maybe 30 seconds and it just added a nice little bit of a detail, knocked off all the sharp edges. If I can get my camera to focus. Anyways, next thing I'm gonna do is just run over everything with a little bit of sandpaper and get all the rest of this wood glue and stuff off. And off it goes to its new home. I did fail to mention that I took some wood glue and some sawdust and filled in all the little nail holes and gaps because there were some small gaps, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, that's all we're doing, just sanding it down here and sending it home. All right, so yes, this did take me 3 days, but that was because of extraneous reasons. Actual working time, still less than 3 hours. Quick project, and there's 2 takeaways that I would like to drive home. Number 1, you do not need any fancy tools to do this. Yes, I used a router. Yes, I used a power nailer. The table saw, again, marketplace, pawn shop, those are your best friends. You got to buy new. Harbor Freight's a good option as well. I only have 1 tool that I bought new, 2 tools that I bought new, and that's very recently. Everything else that I've used is either secondhand or, like I said, Harbor Freight. So the second thing I want to drive home is if stuff like this overwhelms you, have a plan. Draw a picture of it, understand exactly what you're going to build, what the dimensions are, and how you're going to attack it so that you can break it down step by step and go at it that way. And I think you'll do much better that way.